just to get started, I wanted to do this. This is basically a DNA test. And then based on your genetics, they'll tell you what you might be deficient in, what you might need to supplement, and different things like that. And then there's also different ones that'll tell you your ancestry, right? And so my main purpose was for the health and fitness aspect of it, but it also did give me an ancestry report. Ooh. But if that's your goal in a DNA test, I would not recommend this company. It didn't give me a whole lot. This is my report, and I can expand these a little bit. Apparently, my ancestral DNA, I am from the British Isles, which is completely different from what I've been told my whole life. So that was kind of surprising in this test, but there's different types of ancestral DNA and different lines that you can get tested. So this doesn't show the full picture. This could just be, I have roots in the British Isles. But moving on to what we probably all want to get to are the actual traits. So I'm just going to start here at the skin because there's very little here. So it'll tell you all the different, these are the skin traits that they tested for. And I'll just pick one. So it kind of, this paragraph kind of tells you what it is. And luckily for me, I have an increased likelihood to look younger just based on my genetics. So that was a nice little surprise. But then it goes in to tell you, okay, so this particular trait of looking younger is influenced by, this amount of genetics and then this part of lifestyle. And then it goes into recommendations. And so it'll tell you what to do, maybe what not to do, which I thought was cool. Now, the further we get into this, the more that these recommendations you'll find for this particular company are just your everyday, pretty standard recommendations for a healthier lifestyle. But right, we're on the youthfulness trait, so these particular ones are going to help in your youthfulness, right? And then if you really want to nerd out, like I might at some point in the future, is that it tells you the different genes and SNPs. This is called single nucleotide or something like that, is what SNP stands for. It tells you what they call it, the risk allele. So we all have 2 copies of a gene. Each single one is called an allele, and so this is the risk copy. And then here's what my actual genotype is, right? So for this particular gene, I'm pretty safe because I have 2 copies of the non-risk allele, again here, and again, and again, again, and again. So, which is probably why I have that increased likelihood to stay looking younger. And then they'll give you some research citations so you can actually look into the different research papers that they have investigated here. And if I go back, it'll do that for every single one of these little cards here. Which I thought was
pretty good. It's a really great question. Like, going through this testing, like what stood out most to you about this for yourself, Zach?
Are you talking about skin specifically or just in general?
Just in general, like, so was it something skin related or like exercise recommendations or like general health recommendations that they provided to you based on the testing?
I don't know if there's anything surprising, I guess. For me, it was more so like on some of these diet and micronutrient traits here, was that it matched up with some of my blood work that I've had done in the past and been told about like my health history. For instance, omega-3 fatty acid levels low. I've been told that these levels have been low, and like I have a family history of that, so I was kind of expecting it. So it was neat to see that it kind of matched up with that. And so, as you would expect, fish and then fish oil supplements is a recommendation, which I'm sure you've heard before. What was that?
I said, so you should be taking a shot of fish oil every day.
Sounds like it.
A lot of people are actually like, they don't supplement enough with omega-3 fatty acids, specifically if they don't eat a lot of fish. So that's something that I don't push, but I encourage people on, because one, there's just a lot of things that it's important for. Brain development is one of them, because it's like the fatty acid that is actually part of the brain cell development.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the cholesterol levels at moderate was kind of surprising, because I've been told I have kind of a bad ratio, or at one point I had a bad ratio of good cholesterol or HDL to LDL. So this was kind of surprising that it was like mid-range here, I guess.
So Zach, I think that might be based on some new data. I think there's controversy over that HDL LDL interpretation of what that is, like based on your lifestyle, what ratio is actually good or bad. So I think if you care to look deeper into it, you might get some more clarification on why yours says moderate here.
And if you don't mind digging into that one, Zach, that would actually be interesting, because I know what like he's talking about. And I think part of it also is not just the ratio based on lifestyle, but there's some controversy over like dietary cholesterol versus just as like natural production of cholesterol within our system, because it's something that our body produces, but we also need to get it from dietary. And for so long, I mean, you used to hear it where people said eggs were bad for you because of the cholesterol within them, whereas that might not necessarily be the case, and it's based on a lot of other dietary factors.
Yeah, definitely. And I listened to a podcast called The Neuro Experience, and it's the host is big into brain health, and has her PhD and MD and all this stuff related to brain and brain health and brain optimization and things of that nature, and just brings on other doctors, other PhDs, and a couple like high level athletes. And so one of the guests, I forget who it is, but talked about cholesterol and how we typically measure it in the ratio, but I think it's the LDL. There's like two different types. And so just the HDL to LDL level doesn't really give you a whole lot of insight. It's like you have to dig a little bit deeper into where that the different types of cholesterol are coming from. So
I guess a couple of questions.
Yep.
Like, what's one thing that you think, and I know you mentioned that there wasn't anything that really stood out or was surprising to you, but was there something that you found in here that you're going to just like slightly adjust in terms of like your activity or your dietary habits or anything like that?
Yep, absolutely. So that's where I was going to go next, actually. So thanks for the question. There's a couple things. Couple things here. So I'm slow to metabolize caffeine. So what that means is it's gonna remain in my body a lot longer. So I've done my best to stop drinking excess after 2 p.m. because I want to try and go to bed about anywhere between 10 and 11 is my goal. And so making sure that I've finished a can of excess with even the small amounts of caffeine that it has before 2 p.m. so that it can metabolize fully before I start to try and sleep.
So
I'm going to try my best to limit. Sorry?
So the little caffeine in excess, you think that could play an impact in for you?
I think so.
Okay.
I haven't done full on testing of it, really played with that yet. But yeah, I mean, even though there's small amounts of it, like if it metabolizes slowly in my body, then even that little bit is going to get metabolized slower.
It's something I might want to play around with too, because I'm pretty much drink excess till I drink it like water. So
another one that I was kind of also surprised about was a salt sensitivity. So I should really lower my salt intake. So I'm going to try and not put as much salt on things. But
well, there's that. And then also being cognizant, reading your nutrition labels with like how much sodium is actually contained within products.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, definitely. And then so I was kind of low on these top 8 here. So I had been taking to relate this to business and Amway, I had been taking Heart Health, Perfect Pack, and the Men's Pack. And so after learning this, I kind of really did a deep dive into the Men's Pack and Perfect Pack. But what I found is that if you go to the Perfect Pack and ingredients, there's these 4 different other Nutrilite products. And so Double X has a lot of these micronutrients. I know we just talked about the percent daily value the last couple weeks, but some of these percentages are just so high, over 100%, that regardless of where you fall on the spectrum, you should be fairly good to go just with Double X.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. There's more research coming out on like so there's a recommended daily amount or I think it's called RDAs from a measurement perspective. And some of those it's more of like an adequacy and like a conservative level of that amount of nutrient that we need. I think we touched upon this last week where vitamin D, there's like a pretty low level that it's actually recommended for, but the optimal amount for us is actually somewhere closer to like 4,000 to 5,000 IUs a day.
Yeah, and some people even say 10,000.
Yeah. So like the percentage that it's giving us is based off the RDA level versus more of like what is optimal for us. So, and that's something that we could dive deeper into, is like all of the different nutrients that we have and like what would actually be optimal for us versus what's sort of like the daily conservative level. Now there is a level of toxicity too, like where you don't want to get above too much for like specific vitamins. Like vitamin A is one of those where it can become highly toxic if you hit a certain threshold or even getting close to it. But yeah, this is all like super interesting.
Yeah. If I could get back to
Yeah. So for example, Zach, I had a blood panel from my doctor, and I'm low in iron.
Mhm.
And so over the last year, I started taking just the iron, adding the iron to mine, and I am like, I went from deficient to like borderline minimum. So, um, you probably whatever amount you currently take of these individuals, right? Not with the pack, you probably have to double them. And even at that, like you're probably still gonna be like scraping the, just the entering the like moderate um areas. And then the other thing with that is for these specific ones, like we talked about last week, if you look into how your body can easily absorb them, so like so that you know that for these specific ones, you should be taking them with water or with a fatty food or or with some other vitamins so that your body actually absorbs a lot of them, then that could also really help improving that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the trick here, at least for this particular company and the way they phrase it, is right, is that I have an increased likelihood. So it's not like that I'm necessarily low. It's just like based on my genes, it's probably a good likelihood that I'm low.
Uh,
There's
Right?
probably a legal angle to that too.
Totally. Yeah.
Mhm.
So to Lake's point, like the next step would be to go get like a blood panel and figure out where I'm at today and then really customize, my supplements or diet based off of that. So yeah, it was kind of interesting. I'll just quickly go to this one because this one actually, I don't know if it was surprising, but I have a low ability to build muscle apparently. So this kind of explains why, even though I've worked out just as much as some people, growing up, that I have never really been able to put on muscle. Um, so
Sounds like we're making other recommendations.
So what how much did something like this cost you? Like doing
so for skin, the genetic, the diet, so it gave me a supplement report, but obviously we have supplements, so I took a peek at it, but didn't do anything with it really. Exercise and ancestry. So for all of this, I paid $100. Normally it's like 140, but I caught it at a sale. So
and it was it like you had to select which tests you wanted done, or is it just like this is a package and this is all the stuff that you get?
right, they'll have different levels for you. Like you get this report for $79. But if you want to go up to $100, you get this extra report or two. And then there's even a third level that you could get more. So
Yeah. And I think it's a very small investment relative to like the value or the amount of information that you can gain from it, as long as it's like done like quality, right?
yeah.
So would you say you had like an overall just like good experience and that there's at least something that you can take out of it that you'll implement towards your health?
Yeah, definitely. I even have like I wrote down a lot of this stuff so I don't have to come here. So I have a piece of paper that has like, okay, your likelihood and low in this. Here's the recommendations. And then off of that piece of paper, I created a note card like here. That's like, okay, you should supplement with this, or you're recommended to eat more of this. And so now it's boiled down to one note card because a couple different traits and genes recommend the same, right? So now I just have it all in one note card, so to help me with my shopping, grocery shopping, and things like that.
Nice.
Yep. And there are, just for full transparency, there are other companies. So if you do want to do this, do your own research and figure out what they'll give you. Because there's one called DNA Fit. It's based out of England, but Rio Ferdinand Leke, from the old soccer guy from Man U, kind of is one of the co-founders or heads of that. So I thought that was really interesting.
DNA Fit.
Yep. And then 23andMe is another one that podcast I said I listened to. That host recommends the DNA or the 23andMe one for the health and fitness. That's also a little bit better ancestry reports, I feel like, too. And maybe just another plug while we're on the genetics topic. There are precision medicine doctors out there that you could go to and get this done. I'm gonna guess it's a lot more expensive. So I don't know if you're in a space, but they also have a lot more tools and coaching and resources that could follow up with that genetic result too. So.
And that's actually a good point from a billing perspective. Were you able to use like an HSA or an FSA like spending for this? Because I think you could get reimbursed through that if you haven't.
That's a good question. I didn't even look into that. So I did not use.
And you can, if you have something like that, check with your insurance, but you might be able to even just like reimburse yourself. Like, so you paid with it with your personal funds, and then you can just reimburse from that fund back to your like bank account.
Cool.